Welcome to The Swing of Things with Amanda Kraus. Our podcast covers all things rowing within the United States and is produced by Row 360. I'm your host, Amanda Kraus. In this episode, I'm joined by USRowing Beach Sprint medallists Chris Bak and Morgan Hummel. Beach sprints are an exciting and entirely new format, likely to debut as an Olympic sport in LA 2028. It is the fast-growing wild cousin of traditional flatwater rowing. At Saundersfoot, Wales, last October, Chris won the USA's first ever Beach Sprints gold medal in the men's single. And together with Morgan, they won a bronze medal in the mixed coxed quad. Hi, Morgan. Hi, Chris. Thanks for joining me this morning on The Swing of Things.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
I've been looking forward to this conversation. We're going to jump right in with a question for you, Chris. I want to know, there's a quote that I read that said, "Mother Nature is the controller of the entire race. You may be the best rower on the water, but she controls your destiny." Will you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I think that's a super applicable quote to the racing that had happened, especially in the final, and kind of throughout the whole weekend. Wales was... you got every season in the weekend. It was really, really warm some days, completely flat water. And then the next day it was, 4, 5, 6 foot swells that we were rowing through. And I think it really spoke to, at least this year, the most technical rower would be able to come out on top. And I think that played true. But deeper than that, it's really goes to show to the sport that Mother Nature always has control, no matter if it's flatwater or coastal. We're at her hand, and it's a really humbling experience to be able to experience that at the highest level, but then also just on a day-to-day basis of, okay, is it too cold to go out for a flatwater row, or is it another beautiful day where you're going to see turkeys fly and eagles soar?
That's wonderful. And I should have led with, huge congratulations to both of you for bringing home medals from World Championships. And, I only got to watch online, and it was incredibly exciting. And it takes a certain type of athlete to do what you all did. So really amazing. Congratulations. For the listeners who don't know a lot about beach sprints, we have rowers who may have been rowing for decades and don't know a ton about it. So, Morgan, can you walk us through the format?
Yeah. So beach sprints, this is my first year doing it. Especially for the quad, what it is it's a 500 meter sprint where you go 250 meters out, 250 meters back. On the 250 meters out into the ocean, you're slaloming some buoys, and then the last buoy you have to make a turn and come straight back onto shore. In order to start the race, you have one person starting on land, and so for the quad that was the coxswain, and they run anywhere from like 10 to 30 meters to the boat, and everyone else is in the ocean waiting beside the boat. When they press the start button and the person on land is running to the boat, everyone else is hopping in the boat and then waiting for that person. And as soon as they get to your boat, they hop in and you guys start rowing. And then when you come back to shore, you have another person jump out of the boat. And for us, that was Chris. He was amazing at it.
Is it always bow seat? I was watching that. Is it always bow?
Usually it is. We did see a couple instances at Worlds where bow seat tried to jump out of the boat and either they got stuck or they fell. So then someone else from the boat jumped out and ran to shore. So it's usually bow seat because they're the closest. Yeah. But it could be other people. Yeah. So they jump out of the boat, run up the shore, and they have to hit the buzzer to stop your time. So it's super exciting.
So do those rowers, and it's always the coxswain who starts?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And do they practice that sprinting on the beach?
I don't know about everyone else, but I know our coxswain, Peter, he practiced a lot. He was amazing at it, and he had no fear. He just jumped right in.
Yeah, I saw that.
Because we saw some other coxswains who would step in the boat, and he just full send straight in, and then it's telling us to go as he's getting situated. So yeah, he had a lot of dedication to that.
And you have two people holding the boat. Is that right?
Yeah, we have two boat handlers. They're kind of setting the boat as we're trying to jump in. And then they'll both kind of shove us off as we're starting to row, which really helps. I mean, in the quad, you don't feel as much because it's a heavier boat. But in like the double and the single, you can really see that they give you a lot of momentum out of the start. So, yeah.
Yeah, I wondered about that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Chris,
Yeah.
shifting it back to you, you have a lot of experience as a rower, both as a coastal rower and flat water rower. I mean, what are the biggest differences for you?
I think there's a lot of technical differences, but the biggest thing as far as coastal goes compared to flat water is being okay with the unknown. Especially with water conditions, flat water, even on a choppy day, you have somewhat of a guaranteed catch, for example. You kind of know where the mechanics of the boat are going to be. In coastal, that all goes out the window. I remember when we were training on the Mediterranean in Barcelona with our coach, Mark, that like the first day we went out, there was probably 20-foot swells just bouncing off the seawall. And you tried to catch and your blades weren't going in the water. You had no idea. And for the first couple days, maybe even weeks, it was tough to get acclimated to that because it was quite frustrating in a sense that you wanted to go to your roots of flat water rowing and be able to know, okay, this is when the blade should be in the water. This is when I should be done. But then learning to accept, again, that Mother Nature is the boss and just saying, okay, if the stroke isn't perfect per se, then let's go back. Let's just be okay with that. Let the blades go in when they go in and pull through it. And I think that's the number one difference between traditional flat water rowing and coastal is learning to accept that, hey, not everything is going to be perfect, but how can we move forward stroke by stroke, moving it throughout the race.
So maybe speaks to a different personality a little bit. Is that, or am I just projecting that?
I mean, it could. I think a lot of people that are involved and it's really interesting. A lot of people on the team had gone through some sort of life experience, whether it was quitting a job, moving to a new city, anything like that. And I think through those life experiences, translating that into rowing, there's been personalities on the team this year that just kind of have that acceptance naturally built into their inner workings as a person. And I think translating that into rowing, it crosses over really well, just to be able to accept, I don't know my fate. I don't know when I'm going to cross the finish line or if there's going to be a swell that's going to be there. Whereas in flat water, the worst case scenario, you get waked by a launch maybe. Whereas in coastal, you don't know. You could get eaten by a shark or a whale could take out your boat.
That back. I read that you all is this true? I read that in certain practices, your coach would actually wake you all as part of practice to, sort of simulate waves. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So especially being from Ohio, we don't have a big ocean. We have rivers, and so Mark would just hop in the launch and drive circles around us to create waves. And again, you just have to get creative sometimes.
I love it. And yeah, speaking of being from the Midwest, Morgan, you grew up in Missouri. Is that correct?
I did.
So no rowing. And you walked on at Ohio State. And
yep.
Was it even on your radar when you got to campus?
No. So I actually got, it was like a generic email in June or July before I started school. Because I clicked a box or checked something off on my common application saying it was okay for them to give college coaches my information. And the novice rowing coach gets all the females who do that on their application, and he just blasts out an email saying, like, come join the novice rowing team. And so I was like, what's rowing? And I was like, this sounds interesting, and went to a meeting before, or like the first week of school, and then started going to some practices, and I was like, this seems like a lot of fun.
Well, that worked out well for you.
Yeah.
And you're also a coastal rower. So can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, so this is my first year of coastal rowing. Chris and I have a mutual friend that Chris had reached out to asking if he knew anyone that would want to join the quad. And then that friend reached out to me and asked if I knew of anyone. And I was like, well, this sounds interesting. I'm kind of interested. So then he told him that he would reach out to Chris to let him know. And then I get a call from Chris at like 8:00 at night asking if I'd be willing to join the quad. And I was like, yeah, this sounds great. Like, when's racing? It was like 2 weeks from then.
Oh my
I was like, oh boy. Yeah. So I made sure I was okay with the coach of the team I was a part of at the time for flatwater rowing. And then told Chris I could do it. We had one weekend of practice before trials, and yeah.
Wow. And what is the distance for coastal?
So for coastal, for endurance, time trial is usually 4K. And then the A final is usually 6K. In Wales, they had to shorten it because the water was so bad. So it was 4K again. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's great. So going back to you, Chris, for a moment here. You won gold in the single, bronze in the mixed quad. What was going through your head when you came across that finish line? And God, there's some great photos there. After the single, those are some of my favorites. But what was going through your head knowing, that you were going to win that?
Definitely. So I'll start with the quad. I think with the quad, that was the first opportunity that I had for a world's medal. The year prior, I think we were on a really good projected path. Ended up missing a buoy in the quarterfinals, which was pretty devastating after winning the time trial fairly handedly. And so I knew there was an extra gear there. And so going in on Saturday, knowing that there was an extra opportunity to earn a medal, first world championship medal. It was a really special race. And then starting out the race, being with the team, all I was thinking was I knew that France was ahead, about a boat length and a half. We got around the buoy, and all I could think the entire way back was just, get me to the beach, get me to the beach, get me to the beach. I will sprint as hard as I possibly can to secure this. And sure enough, probably within the last 50 meters of the race, we just edged them out to the beach. And at that point, it just in my mind, I knew there was no looking back. And I knew for every single person in that boat, I had touched on this a little before, that they had gone through something earlier that year, that this would be really special. And I think that was like the key moment for me to understand how big this was, not only for the US, but just every single person in that boat. And that's what made it such a really cool experience in the quad. And I absolutely loved it. And then fast forwarding to the single, I guess as far as some of the emotions in the single, my coach Mark helped me every single time I was getting in the boat. He just said, be patient and relax. And I think from earlier that day, which is when they had the round of 16, I knew I had to be first off the line, get in the boat as quickly as possible. But then fast forwarding that to the quarters through the finals races, it was much more just relax. The waves are going to control the race. You just have to be able to control the boat in the waves. And there was a running joke afterwards that some of the other athletes from the other countries came up to me and said, "Oh, Chris, your legs must be fresh because you didn't take one full stroke the whole race," because I was just rowing arms and back the whole race. So it was really funny in that. And to be honest, it still hasn't really sunk in yet. There's just a lot of logistical things that I've been figuring out for the next upcoming year. But again, just knowing that Mother Nature is going to win no matter what, all you can do is just try to survive really in those situations.
Yeah. And I guess work with her as much as possible. If that's, I don't know if that's possible. And then, okay, that's exciting. So speaking of, sorting for the future, next year, the IOC will likely confirm whether coastal rowing will be included in the LA 2028 program. Most likely, right, the rumor has it would be beach sprints. How much is that on your radar? I'll ask you that first, Chris, and then Morgan.
Yeah, it's definitely on the radar. Since I started the sport, that's always been the goal. I think that's a lot of high-level rowers' goals, is to make the Olympics, to medal at the Olympics. That's the highest level of our sport that we can obtain. And I think going into that, I like to take it year by year, even just day by day. You never know what's going to happen tomorrow, and we know that our time in the sport is limited. 2028 would be, kind of the NCAP dream. But we'll see how the process goes from now until then.
Yeah. And Morgan?
Very similar to what Chris said, especially because I think I'll be in my 30s by the time that comes around, which, there's plenty of athletes who are in that age category, and doing the sport. So just kind of taking it day by day, year by year, just because like don't know about like job and career wise, like trying to start that, and then still working out, and because it really training for Olympic sport, it's almost a full-time job. So trying to figure a balance between that and also trying to earn money so that you can create your living and all that good stuff. So yeah, never say never. Just trying to take it as a process and not just as an end goal. Just trying to enjoy the journey, really.
Yeah, great. So going back to the racing a little bit, unlike flatwater rowing where crews bring their own boats, you have boats provided, right? That's how to lower the barrier for entry. Do I have this right? They have a pool of boats to use. Are they? I think they're all Philippe's, or they were at Worlds. And how much time do you get with those shells? I mean, is it just here you go? Do you get some practice time in them? How is that piece? I mean, that's different because you both know the experience of rigging, coming with your own boat that you've trained in for weeks, months, maybe even years. How does that work?
Yeah, so typically not that much time with the boats. You get familiar with them, I would say, year over year, but they do change the design year over year. So the boats act differently within different conditions, but really you get about 30 minutes. So the time slots that you get for practice windows are only 30 minutes. So, and as a team, as a country, you get a 1 hour time slot for practice. So we have to break down that 1 hour time slot amongst all of the juniors, all of the seniors in every different boat class. So you're looking at anywhere between 20 and 30 minutes to practice once you actually get to the venue. And so it's very chaotic. You have to have your plan before you go in and say, okay, today we're going to focus on turns. Today we're going to focus on entries, whatever that plan might be. And then executing that to the highest ability that you feel comfortable, and then accepting, hey, that's all the practice we get for the day, for the week.
Wow. I didn't realize it was that short. Yeah. Tied to, speaking of the boats, I think it's so interesting. And I wonder if flatwater rowing will follow this lead, that there are mixed boats at Worlds, unlike flatwater. And I'd love to know, what that experience was like for both of you. And Morgan, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I had never rowed in a boat with guys, except I did do a Canadian Henley -8 with a mixed eight, which was fun. A little different than coastal. It was different at first because like men and women have different, I want to say like strokes, like techniques. I feel like a lot of times men are a little bit more powerful with their stroke, whereas the women, we are powerful, but the technique plays in a little bit more. The men tend to be a little bit taller than the female, so it's like trying to find a balance between that. So like I sat behind Corey Rogers, which was a lot of fun, and just trying to figure out, because he got so much length in the stroke, and I'm trying to like follow him, and I'm like, I'm restricted. It's hard to figure that out, and just like communicating between everyone, saying, okay, this is like where we need to be stroke length wise, and helping each other out with like where to have the power output and all that kind of stuff, if that makes sense.
What was the height difference in that quad from?
That's a good question. I know I'm 5'9". I think Jenny's around 5'9", 5'10". Corey is a little bit taller. I'm not sure what Chris is. He could probably say. Corey has really long arms. If you look at him, long arms and long legs. So just like his reach out of the boat is greater than what I could do. So we would talk about, like, he would ask where he needed to shorten the stroke, so that we could all match up, which was really helpful.
Yeah, it looked like it came together.
Yeah.
Chris, what did you think of the mixed boat format?
Oh, I love it. I think the mixed boat format is so much fun. We have some awesome super ladies on our team. Quote from Mark there. Everybody's a superhuman on the team, whether it's the coxswain, the rowers, whoever it might be. And I think to Morgan's point, that's a really good point that I didn't really put to thought until she mentioned it, but matching up the different stroke lengths and things like that, but being willing to work with, differences in the stroke, because obviously when you're one cohesive boat and in unison, you can really dial it in on 1 to 2 things, where in coastal, not only do you have the natural aspect, but you also have the aspect of each individual rower and their flatwater background that you have to tie in. And again, I think it just offers multiple perspectives on different rowing techniques. And I think at some point in our training and our racing, every single person within that boat was able to chime in with input of what would make the boat faster. And it did end up making the boat faster. And so again, I think it's just a really cool opportunity to be able to overlay kind of someone who might come from a big boat sweeps program, D1 college, to some club rower like me who comes from a smaller program, and be able to really bring that knowledge base together. I really think it's a cool opportunity.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if that starts to change in flatwater rowing at all. I think it's a great model. So I really so appreciate you both taking time today to talk about this incredible journey you've been on. And, we're also proud of what you did representing the United States. And I have one question that I always end this podcast with, which is fun for all of you rowers. It's fun to hear from all of you. And it is, and Morgan, we'll have you go first, is you've finished a hard row, big row. What's your go-to breakfast getting off the water? What are you going to eat?
Oh, that's a good one.
Anything you want.
My favorite is chocolate chip pancakes.
Delicious.
That's like my go-to. Yeah, with like eggs and hash browns or something to go on the side. But yeah, chocolate chip pancakes is my favorite.
I love that you didn't just end with the chocolate chip pancakes. You added to it. That's great. Yep, I respect that. And Chris?
Oh man, dream breakfast is probably like the Waffle House All-Star with loaded hash browns, but that's not really realistic. I usually just come home, 2 eggs, some peanut butter, honey toast, and a banana, and a cup of coffee will do it for me. Keep it consistent, keeps the tummy happy. So that's my go-to.
So now I know how the beach sprints athletes roll. I got it. It's like Waffle House. It's a lot of pancakes, hash brown. Yeah, okay. I get it. That
Carb
tracks.
loading's key.
That tracks. You guys aren't like just a little, maybe a smoothie, some berries.
No.
That's great. I love it. And really appreciate you coming on and talking to us and starting to educate all of us, even those of us who've rowed forever, to learn more about this really exciting discipline. I, really thrilled that it's becoming a bigger part of what we're doing in this sport, and really we're all looking forward to watching what you all do next. So thank you for the time today, and congratulations again.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. Appreciate you having us.
And that's all for this episode of The Swing of Things. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Chris and Morgan. Remember to like, share, and follow from wherever you get your podcasts. It helps others to find us. Please subscribe to make sure you don't miss future episodes. And thank you for listening.